That takes care of programming. Now we're going to show you how to change some of the options in the controller. If you want to make changes, please be sure to read the instruction manual in conjunction with watching this video. You must be in idle mode. Then hit the other button and you'll see the word reset. If I hit enter at this point, it will reset many of the options back to the factory default that came with the controller. Press the other button again and you will see the word cone. This is the cone lookup table, and it allows you to see what temperature is normal for some particular cone to bend at. So let's say I want to find out what temperature the controller thinks the cone 5 should fire to. So I'll just cone, and then the number 5 comes up, I hit enter, and it tells me 2167, then immediately goes back to complete. When I've seen the complete thing, that means I need to go to the other button again to get back into my options. So I'm going to hit the other button and I'm just going to scroll through to the next option. That's the ID. That only has any value or use when the DynaTrol is hooked up with a KISS software system. In this case, it would be called number 1. But I could change this if I had a number of controls and one computer that was reading each individual control. And if I hit enter, then it will go back to the idle mode and allow me at that point to go back in and hit some of the other options. So let's go through again. I'm going to go through each option here. Now we have cone offset. That's what that means. C-N-O-S, cone offset. And I'm going to hit enter. And now what this allows me to do is to put in a specific cone offset for each cone that I might fire to. So let's go to cone number 5 again. In this case, it's telling me I'm reducing, and that's what that 90 stands for. It's a negative indication. I'm reducing the temperature by 20 degrees that the kiln will stop firing at. So in this particular case, we're using it to compensate for the heavy ceramic protection tubes, and that's one of our compensations. You'll find that most of the cones, except for the very low cones, have a 9020 compensation put in, and you may need to adjust these to get exact results. So I'm going to just hit this enter button, and that's done. So I can do that for each cone, and that information, by the way, will stay in there even after you hit the reset button. So now I'm going to go through and go to change degrees. If I go in here and hit the enter, right now it's degrees Fahrenheit. If I can toggle that by hitting the 1 key. So I go to degrees centigrade, and notice when I've done that, that this little dot comes up to indicate to you that the temperatures that you're reading in the display are in degrees centigrade. I'm going to hit the 1 button again to toggle it back to degrees Fahrenheit and hit enter. The next option is the error codes. Now in this case I can have them either on or off, and again I'm using the 1 as a toggle button. The error codes generally you want to have on, and there is a whole series of them that are turned on or off depending on how you have this set. You'll need to look in the instruction manual if you want more information on that. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to hit the other button again, keep going here. We have, now we have the thermocouple offset, and I can put a thermocouple offset in for each thermocouple. So for instance, if I have one thermocouple that's reading a little higher than the other ones, I can actually put an offset in, and that will allow me to adjust the uniformity of the kiln. So I'll show you what they're preset for. Thermocouple 1, whoops, went you have to be careful here because you can hit it and go very fast. So light touch is necessary. They're all programmed for 0050 when they come from the factory if you have our ceramic protection tubes. And what that does is it raises the temperature, or adds to the temperature, if you will, of what the thermocouple is reading. And that's why when you have this in at room temperature, that you're going to see a slightly higher temperature than you would otherwise think. So I'm going to go through, and each one is programmed that way. If I want to change it, let's say I want to change this to 0040, 0040, and then hit enter, that would change it. And now my thermocouple that I just programmed is going to be at a slightly different compensation. So we're going to go through here again. And now we have the lag. The factory default setting is 25 degrees. So what that is, the lag is the number of degrees that's allowed between the top, middle, and bottom, or the top and the bottom if you have a two-section kiln. And that's the number of degrees it's allowed there. So you can see that our normal preset is 25 degrees. I can go as low as 5 degrees. Now watch what I'm doing here. I'm going to put in a 5-degree lag. If I do that, I'm not going to hit the enter button, but if I do that, that will make a very tight uniformity in the kiln. The downside to doing that, and the reason we don't as a factory default, is it will slow the kiln down as some zones turn off to allow the kiln to compensate. We have found that 25 degrees in general for ceramics works pretty well, and you may fool with that if you want, but in any case, this is the area where you would do it. So I'm going to do that, hit enter. Now, a very important function here. This is called the auto lag, AULG. The factory setting is on, and what this does is it turns off the zone control until the last segment of the program. The reason we do that is you really do not, in general, for most work, need to have the zone control working during most of the firing. Now there are some critical processes, like glass for instance, where that would not be true. And again, to change this, you can toggle it with the 1, but we're going to leave it on. And you can read more about that, of course, in the instruction manual. So let's keep going here. And by the way, that auto lag was a subset menu to the lag menu. And there's another thing that I need to say, which is that some of these options, like lag for instance, would not show up if you had programmed the controller to be a single zone control. So what you're seeing now is only going to show up if we have 3 zones or 2 zones programmed in there. So I'm going to go through now. This is the board temperature. What that means is it's actually reading the temperature of your control board, and that's good to know sometimes. I'll hit this right now to find out what it is. It's 74 degrees Fahrenheit. It tells you that when you're in a hot room, for instance, you may want to know that because you want to operate the controller below 125 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a way to find out. So we will keep going through, and that's it.